Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson, and we're brought to you by Vivid Seats. And for anyone who missed it, my 2025 relief pitching prospects rankings article went live on Sunday. Maybe my favorite article I do of the year, probably just because it's such a unique prospect article. There's so much overlap these days with what people are writing about, with what people are talking about, and it's just nice to still have something that I feel like is somewhat unique out there. So check out that relief pitching prospect rankings article. If you want Roto 15 for 15% off, Roto 15 is a code you can use at checkout there. My guest today is Chris Welsh, who lives out in Arizona. Been on the show plenty of times before, obviously, and he scouts, the Arizona Fall League, the Arizona Complex League, which starts Saturday. Chris has also been going to some extended spring training games out in Arizona. So great guy to have on for this episode, because Chris and I are going to preview the three rookie leagues: the Arizona Complex League, the Florida Complex League, and the Dominican Summer League. So Chris, thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, my friend. I'm glad to be yapping with you about all of it. And it's I will say it is weird for rookie ball to start on Saturday. That's the first I think I've ever seen of that. And not that I mean, maybe it's a little like OCD of me. And it's like, can we start on a Monday or even a Tuesday?
Yeah.
It does feel very weird because they're going to play and then they're going to have a day off. And then they're going to come back to it on Monday. But we are going to move away finally from people seeing me share videos and being like, what league is this? Where is this? To sanctioned games, because extended spring training and complex are, as much as they are similar, they're a little bit different worlds.
Yeah, so to provide a little context here, the types of players we're going to be talking about, Leo DeVries of the Padres is already at high A and having a ton of success. Jesus Mate and Mate's teammate Luis Pena of the Brewers are both at single A. They're having a bunch of success, but they're all from the 2024 J15 class. And those guys are just so advanced that they're already in A ball, high A for DeVries. But the guys we're going to talk about, a lot of the guys we're going to talk about are those guys' classmates who are going to be heading to the Arizona and Florida Complex League, which is an age-appropriate level for those guys. So that kind of speaks to how advanced DeVries, Mate, and Pena are looking. And then we're also going to talk about some 2024 draftees, some high schoolers who are going to be getting their feet wet in the Arizona and Florida Complex League. And then we'll talk about some 2025 J15 guys in the Dominican Summer League. But Chris, first, you've been going to some extended spring training games. What have you been seeing? Who have you been seeing out there? Can you kind of give us a feel for what you've been witnessing out in Arizona?
Yeah, and I'll let people know. So extended, because like the big thing that's popping up is there's a couple major leaguers that have been rehabbing out here, Ketel Marte and Jackson Merrill, and that has created a gajillion questions where people are again like, "What is this? Where is this? Can people go? Blah blah blah. Why don't I?" And because extended spring training is, think of it like instructs. You can do it. They can do whatever they want. They can roll it. So like Ketel Marte and Jackson Merrill, as they were rehabbing, they would go to bat every inning. So every inning they would start off. And so through 4 innings and blah, 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 they're done. They roll innings. They don't let pitchers go too far. They're just games that are not sanctioned. They can do whatever they want. Guys don't run. But the extended games are probably 95% of who the rookie level players are going to be. Someone said it like, is it like spring training for rookie ball? Kind of. I mean, they had their spring training, they had the minor league spring training. This just extends it out where they're playing these games. But it's been good. The major leaguers, like I said, there's some guys, hanging around the complex as well. I saw AJ Puck as he's gotten back, but Ketel Marte, Brendan Lockridge also yesterday, and Jackson Merrill I've seen. But I've actually already got to get a ton of eyes on a lot of the guys that we're going to be talking about here in rookie ball, because they're getting into big competitive games. And I can tell you, there are multiple prospects that I've talked to. They're treating this like it's rookie. Like they don't have a designation difference of rookie ball versus this. The only thing that they're going to truly know is on Saturday, there's a handful of prospects that are going to have their first major league at bats, even though they've been doing stuff. I have a great video of JD Dixs, who we're going to talk about, having 2 triples in the very first extended game, but those don't count. So there's going to be a little bit more weight that's going to be put to these games on Saturday. But yeah, right now, you said it best. It is like age level guys with some rehabbers, and probably 90 to 95% of prospects that are going to be in rookie ball are already out here with these teams playing in these extended spring training games.
Man, the Arizona Complex League, it's changed so much. Have you been going to like the equivalent of Arizona Complex League games for like almost a decade now?
Oh man, yeah, probably close to that. It really has changed because like my perspective I always go back to is like there was this one incredible year, and it was 2019. And by the way, it wasn't it was just the ACL. You know, they call it the Fire League at the time.
Right.
And this incredible year was, I think it was Mackenzie Gore, or maybe I'm mixing one year. Maybe it was the year after, but it's CJ Abrams making his debut, Corbin Carroll, Bobby Witt. All the prospects were put there. And
Marco Luciano was up there with those guys then too.
He was one of the biggest ones out here at that time. And some people liked Luciano more than him. Luis Matos. I mean, that was the most, and I think it was the 2019 rookie ball. It was the most stacked I'd ever seen it. But, and how you're talking about like how it's changed too. It's like, you don't have as much of the weight of some of the prospects staying here anymore. Like, I'm selfish. I want Jesus Mate here. I wanted Luis Pena here. There are some of these guys I want to be here. And in the past, in 19, they'd let these guys play the entirety through. And you're seeing a lot less of that. So, you know, if a guy really dominates here, they're just not staying as long as they used to anymore. Plus, they also moved it up a month. So rookie ball used to start in June. It now starts early May, and then they finish. And then they also, and this is the weird one, they end right around when the draft happens, and you would get about a month of the draftees, which was awesome. But now that's turned into a new league called the Bridge League, which is like extended spring training. It doesn't count. People don't know anything about it. They're not sanctioned. They don't, and unfortunately for people that are prospecting, you don't get to see the stats. So it's like the same thing has been happening for this month. It'll happen in, I guess, what is that, August, where you're going to have your favorite guys from the draft be playing in games, but there's going to be no stats or anything for us to work off of as we're analyzing it. So, you know, that's why I get out there as much as possible. And yeah, I've been doing it probably close to like 10 years out on these.
So it's definitely not as loaded as it was, you know, back when we had like the short season leagues, and back when the draft was earlier. But
yeah,
looking ahead to this year, you know, how would you describe like the Arizona complex class? Is it kind of underwhelming, about as you expected? Are you excited? Like, how would you describe the crop just there in Arizona?
So I think I had thrown my expectations out the window because like Mate wasn't going to be here, and Luis Payne, those two, like very specifically. So that kind of got thrown out a tiny bit. So I think I'm actually a little bit pleasantly surprised, because I actually think there are, especially the Arizona League, I think there are quite a few like really intriguing prospects. There's a couple high-end fantasy guys that I think went lower in first-year player that are going to be presumably playing out here. And I think the Arizona list specifically has got quite a few guys that I just didn't expect to be out here. I don't want to ruin all the names or anything like that, but it's a nice mix of like guys that were drafted last year to top international players. And there's still a handful of players that could start getting out. Like one fun one, he's not on this list because he's not here, but like David Ortiz Jr., David Ortiz's kid, is with the Rangers, and he could be out here soon. And it's following the bloodlines is always kind of fun. Last year, the Rangers specifically, they're doing such an amazing job internationally with Braylon Morel. They've got a kid we're going to talk about, Yolfran Castillo here. Pablo Guerrero was out here last year, and he's actually really great. And they've got Hanley Ramirez's kid signed. He'll probably be all DSL all year. David Martinez Jr. could be coming out. So there's a little bit of baseball nostalgia that you kind of look forward to as well. And you will probably have some guys kind of burn and churn. But yeah, I think it's a nice little mixture. No superstar stuff that's out here. But there are quite a few good names that really could have been taken away from us that we might not have gotten. And there is actually a guy we're going to talk about in a tiny bit as well that I was hopeful, and he is leaving extended spring training and joining a top name that actually you put as a question mark, that he's a top kind of drafty guy that people are paying attention to with the Padres, and he's not going to be playing in it, but it's a pretty good league. So
give me the player that you're most excited to see in official ACL games here, which, as we said, they get underway Saturday. I don't know if you're going to be there Saturday, but who are you most excited to see?
I am planning to go out to one of the games on Saturday. One of the things, the slight caveat is I do kind of love when you get a guy that's coming back, not like a major leaguer, but a prospect that might be looming around, and then you might get them into a game. That's a special thing. And the example of that, Ethan Salas just got sent down here. He got hurt. I actually think he's here to rework some stuff. He could play in games. Colson Montgomery is reworking his swing. He could get in a game. Charlie Condon is clearly going to play in the rookie ball because he's rehabbing from the wrist injury. He'll be around. But those are not the things that you get excited about. I have seen already about all of these players, but I'm going to tell you the guy that I'm most looking forward to getting more extended looks at is JD Dixs with the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's not a Homer Diamondback thing for me. It's that I think he might be the most tooled out player that's here. I have rocketed him up my board. I've seen him in about 4 extended spring training games. He's a switch hitter. He's a shortstop. I think he's got the body of someone that could definitely move to third base. He's got a very projectable body. There's another kid, Titus Sissel, who I really like as well. And Titus is a true second base shortstop body. JD Dixs has that like Seager type of body. Like, you know, I think he's like 6'2" or 6'3". Like, I feel like he can grow out of it. He can get 200 plus. He could play across, but a switch hitter with major speed. I would suggest, if you want to see, I put out some video on my Twitter at Is It the Welsh of that very first extended spring training game. He had first 2 at bats were triples from both sides of the plate. The second one was a little bit cheap because it just went by the first baseman, but you can see the wheels. I think he's got a great bat, future power projection. I think he's the most tooled out player who's just learning to be like a tiny bit less aggressive. And I asked him if he was going to play here. He didn't know. But then the Arizona Complex League, like, page has officially listed him as like a notable prospect here. So it looks like he's going to be here. I just don't know if it's going to be for a long, long time. But in my eyes, I think he's like one of the top guys out here, and he's really, really going to thrive. It's just like a 5-tool type of guy. As long as the batting average doesn't go in the bad direction, he's my favorite.
Yeah, JD Dixs, Dix. JD Dixs, actually from my wife's neck of the woods, Welsh, Whitefish Bay in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I know he's from Wisconsin.
Yeah, and he's he had a shoulder issue his draft year, which I don't know if that was part of why they held him back, just to kind of get, because I don't think he's going to be there for long either,
Yeah,
10, 12 games, something like that maybe. But that's a great for you that you get to see him for hopefully a week or 2 out there. And yeah, I noticed the listed body too, 6'2", 185 or so is what he's listed at. And that's different. Like a lot of the shortstops from last year's draft who are being sent to these complex leagues that got 7-figure deals, they're more kind of in the like 6 foot, 195, not that much physical projection remaining type of range. And so I like seeing that with Dixs, and yeah, his hit tool was definitely highly celebrated coming out of Wisconsin, and the power and the speed, very exciting for JD Dixs. Who's an honorable mention if you had to pick the second guy that you're most excited to see?
Yeah, and I think there's some people that would put this guy at the top. It's Tyson Lewis with the Reds. There's another guy that, like, it could have gone either way, and I don't know like how long they'll want to keep him here as well. But Tyson Lewis, another 6'1", 6'2", 190-pound shortstop that I got to see in the Bridge League last year, and pretty talented Bridge League. It was the players that they drafted, Mike Sirota before he was traded to the Dodgers. You had Tyson Lewis, Peyton Stovall, I think it was, a couple of those guys. And in the Bridge League, Tyson Lewis stood out to me. Contact every single time. It was very reminiscent of how Cooper Pratt was when Cooper Pratt played out in the rookie league. Every time I saw Cooper Pratt, contact. Tyson Lewis is a little bit more of an athletic base. Like Cooper Pratt's getting kind of big in a good way. Tyson Lewis is like a hyper athletic, toolsy shortstop, good speed. He's always making contact. Going to be some time maybe before he really learns to like tap into this big power swing. But I think he's an immensely talented player, a guy that I think that could hit at the top of a lineup. Maybe he's hitting 2. I'm very excited to see him and getting to see some counted stats. That's the thing with like Dixs and Tyson Lewis. You just want to see what like these guys, I can go out and see these guys, but like, I don't know what the stat line looks like after a week. There is nothing out there to be able to see like how he consistently does it. Because the one thing I have seen from him in my 3 or 4 looks is that he is always on base. He is always putting barrels on the baseball, and he's going to steal some bases. So I think JD Dixs and Tyson Lewis to me are probably at the tippy top of like the most exciting players out here, and probably roughly the most fantasy relevant of whether it's the Florida League or the Arizona League right now. But in 3 weeks or something, both of them could maybe be gone. I think Tyson Lewis has a longer standing stay here than JD Dixs does, but we'll see. We'll see how these teams, every team's different. Some teams are sending out guys that haven't had any pro experience already. And then some teams really want to hold these guys back to develop. So Tyson Lewis is my honorable mention.
Yeah. And I think Dixs is going to hit. I'd be surprised if he didn't hit. With Lewis, I'm more kind of 50-50. Like I think the the power and speed was much more advertised with Lewis, coming out of the draft, I think, than with Dixs. And Dixs was sort of more hit tool focused, with the power and speed kind of being like a pleasant surprise to go with the hit tool. But, I am always wary when it's a big ticket, prep shortstop that gets held back. Sometimes these guys are just so raw when they get into pro ball. Like a Walker Martin, for instance, with the Giants, like that ended up being a pretty big red flag, especially given the fact that he was older for his class at the time, that they weren't willing to send him out to single A. And then, of course, he was overmatched. So not saying that's the case with every single high school hitter who gets a big bonus and is held back. But I think, it's probably about half the time these guys are held back for a reason. You see them struggle and then they fall down the prospect rankings because especially for the draftees, some of these guys are already 19. I have pretty high expectations for those guys playing against complex level pitching.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. I would say this team is also pretty like locked with like middle infield prospects at all levels, that maybe there's a possibility that was part of it. You also have a lot of guys that are held back like with injuries, like Cam Collier is still hanging back at the complex, and they've got a big staff that's out here to maybe work on. But it's a good point. Like put a pin in it, that maybe that's something to pay attention to, because that awesome, 2019 rookie class I told you about, where, Bobby Witt and Luciano and Carroll, they were here the whole time. That wasn't red flag time. It was pretty common. You play in rookie ball. This is what you do. Nowadays, it is. Over the last 3 years, there's a little bit more to like how long a guy stays here might tell a bigger story about whatever it could be. It could be some type of physical concern. There could be another concern, mental concern. There's a lot of different ways. It's more of a red flag nowadays than it was like 5 years ago.
So the guy that I'm probably most excited for is Yolfran Castillo, shortstop with the Rangers. And that's mostly just because I think he's sort of the most mysterious in terms of what he's going to do. Like obviously the hit tool was great last year. He was so advanced in the DSL that the Rangers moved Castillo to the ACL for a little bit last year. He's obviously going back there again. He's got this frame where if he adds, it's like 6'3", 175, 180, something like that, or at least listed. And then if he adds 20, 25 pounds of muscle, you could really be working with something, just because of the base of the hit tool with Yolfran Castillo. So I love the guys that have that uber projection at that age, who've been young for their levels and have had success. Have you seen Castillo hanging around out there at all? And
saw him last night.
Okay, great. What's he look like, and what are your expectations for him?
Yeah, he looks great. He was playing against Jackson Merrill and them on that final extended spring training game. It's a pretty good roster that they've got out there. They got Paulino, Santana, Yolfren Castillo, and Curly Matha. Great name. Those are some couple names people might know, but Yolfren was playing third base last night, which I thought was really interesting as well, because like you mentioned, he has the frame. He's one of the biggest guys on that roster. They have a kid, I have the video last night of Jackson Merrill hitting one to center, and this kid, I think it was Adrian Batista, made this diving catch, and he's a really tall kid. But outside of him, but he's kind of a tall, skinny guy. Yolfran Castillo is the built guy. I can tell you, there's no chance he's a $165 on ML. What is it? Pipeline's, player page or whatever. They list him at 6'3", 165. No chance. He looks bigger. He looks like he's in that 180 range. A 6'3", 165 kid really stands out as far as like how skinny they're going to show off. I saw him last year in the Bridge League, and then he was here. Yolfren was here during spring training, as was Paulino Santana. So I would say there's definitely some body mass build. He played some solid third base. He is the most impressive physical player, but also he had some really good at bats. I think he ended up, I have it in video, I haven't put it out yet. I think he ended up getting an opposite field hit. I think he's definitely tooled out. He's the type of guy that really could thrive here. Like I said, the Rangers, they do a really good job of their instructional side of this. They've won the Complex League Championship multiple years, and the younger guys always tend to stand out. Sebastian Walcott's been here. I thought Pablo Guerrero was really great last year. I think Yolfren is going to have some real power projection, which we're going to see this year. And that's exciting because we didn't see it in the DSL last year. 10 stolen bases, 377. He was out here for a little bit as well. You just didn't see any of that because there was no home run power popping out. But we did see some doubles power. 15 games, he dropped the double here. I think we're going to see an increase on that this year. So, I don't know if he'll be the big power guy that's out here, but I think there's some similarities in like that. I think him and JD Dixs are going to build into these big power tools. He's just a little bit more raw, but really exciting to see.
And then, I think it's notable, or we haven't brought him up yet, but Emil Morales of the Dodgers, probably the guy that I get asked the most about of all the guys we're talking about. He obviously had the ridiculous showing in the DSL. I don't love his body. Like, it's not the type of frame that I'm typically gravitating towards with the 18-year-old hitting prospect. He's already, was listed as shortstop when he signed. Everyone expects him to be a third baseman at this point, and then he's going to maybe have to work to stick even at third base, Morales, but the power is very exciting. What are your thoughts on him and how he'll show out in the Complex League?
Yeah, I saw him during extended spring training. So he was with the Dodgers. He came because spring training is weird. There's pre-spring training where you'll have a lot of prospects out. They're doing work. You wouldn't know it's not spring training. Then spring training happens, and those guys get kind of kicked to the backfields. But then there's this official date. It's around mid-March where everybody's got to show up. And that's around where Emil Morales started going. And he started actually playing with the A-ball team during extended spring training and playing some competitive games. And he's a big dude. He definitely stands out. 6'3", 190. He might be pushing 6'4", 200, something like that. He's a big guy. Doesn't have the feel of the shortstop, kind of like you're alluding to. Looks like he's going to probably play third base out here for a bit. Huge power. I'm a little bit worried to see, not that the pitching looks like it's going to be that great here as it ever is, but let's see how he's going to adapt to stateside pitching, because I would say this is the most prolific power guy out here. I don't know if it's the best tool set. I kind of still think it's JD Dixs at the end of the day is going to be the complete package. I don't think Morales is going to maybe run as much. It might start turning into more of like a Josuar De Jesus type, but there's huge power. I have a prediction. I'm going to probably get some video of him at some point, just some light tower homer. But is it just going to be that he takes advantage of a lot of these guys that are just going to throw, 94 down the middle and he's going to destroy that? Or is he going to be able to pick up and have a lot of pitch recognition? And that'll be the difference between, him being a no doubt top 100 prospect. Because I think I don't know about your rank, but probably a lot of people, he's probably the number one guy of both leagues as far as fantasy prospect rank, or maybe in that general space, it's going to differ. So he's up there. I think it'll be very telling, but most prolific power, big body. I don't think the body's in a bad way or anything like that yet, but it's the type where you're like, oh, it's probably corner-ish infield. Oh, maybe he doesn't run a whole lot, but he looks like he could destroy some baseballs.
Yeah. For RotoWire subscribers, I will be putting out my breakout rookie level hitters article this week, probably tomorrow, Thursday. And that one includes sort of my read on all these guys from just a pedigree, the body, hit, power, speed, age to level, all that type of stuff. And so with Morales, it's, plus on the pedigree, plus on the performance, plus on the power. But then the rest of it is sort of TBD with him. So I've got him ranked behind Castillo and the top guy that I expect to be assigned to play in the Florida Complex League, who's also a shortstop.
Yeah.
Just because I get a little iffy on the sort of all power, bigger frame guys until they can at least sort of show what they're working with from a hit tool standpoint stateside. And then with Morales, I'd like to see him really against single A pitching too this season. But another guy I'd really like to see against any pitching this season is Kale Fountain, 7-figure bonus third baseman that the Padres drafted last year. And he's recovering from Tommy John surgery, which he had after the draft. I think maybe a month or two after the draft, Kale Fountain had Tommy John surgery. But obviously as a position player, you can come back in well under a year from that. Have you seen or do you have any idea when we might see Fountain debut?
Saw him last night too. No joke. It's a fun one. I saw him in Bridge League. He's been hanging around. He was here all spring training, working and training with all the guys, him, Cobb, Hightower, all those. And he's in games. He's playing in games. He's played in both of the Padre games I've been at. He was actually playing like cleanup. It was Lockridge, Merrill, Cobb, Hightower, and then Kale Fountain. It's always kind of interesting. I know people have laughed at it, but a test case I've always said was pay attention to where these teams actually let some of these guys hit, even if it's rookie ball. It might tell you some of their thoughts of where the hit tool is. And an example was Luis Allen Acuna when he was with the Rangers. There was so much hate around him. Nothing. I was like, they're hitting him 3. They're hitting him in a prime spot in the lineup. Like they have some pretty, interesting thoughts already. And you start to see the bat going. Hightower hitting 3 and Kale Fountain hitting 4. He is physically impressive. Like he has the makings of you're like, oh, this is the 6'4", 6'5" corner infield type of big power guy. There's athleticism in the body. I'd actually say he's got that look of maybe a little bit more even athleticism than potentially like Emil Morales, and Emil Morales is stealing bases. Pretty good hit tool. Definite big power. I think he's rusty. I'm a little bit worried there's going to be some swing and miss in the game. So like I guess the difference is like if you're worried about Emil Morales, I think there's some similar things that could be out there with Kale Fountain, except Kale Fountain comes at like a much cheaper cost. In a lot of leagues, he might just be sitting out there for dynasty owners and not available. But I think he's very, very impressive. The team is putting him in a kind of big position to win as far as lineups go and him cleaning up. And he looks healthy. He looks good. It's been a long recovery time, but he's, throughout spring, he's been there. He's in games right now. I wasn't told one way or another of what's going to happen. I would expect he's going to be here in rookie ball though, because of the missed time last year, and that he's going to stay.
Right.
Because there's a guy that's not going to stay, but I expect him to stay and probably be hitting anywhere between 3 or 4 for this team. But yeah, he is out here healthy, and you'll see him in a box score probably Saturday.
Yeah, I've got Morales and Fountain pretty close. So I'm kind of with you there. Like I think the scouting report is not that dissimilar, and I do sort of also like I'm almost less concerned about Kale Fountain, having the body and everything for third base than I am Morales even. But I would definitely expect him to stay out there the whole time, and that's noteworthy for people in dynasty leagues that maybe had been sitting on the idea of adding Kale Fountain because you might want to be using that spot on a player who's playing, who you can evaluate, and you were maybe worried that you wouldn't be able to see anything from Fountain. But if he's playing in extended games, I would think he'd probably be playing in the complex league. So you might be wanting to pick up Kale Fountain now before he starts playing in games. But yeah, I mean, I think the strikeouts with him, I'm expecting there to be a little bit of that, right? Like,
I am too.
He's so big, and it's just part of the profile. Like strikeouts,
kind of like a Batanti. Like last year,
Sure.
we had or maybe Wolko is a better example of it. George Wolko and Eric Patanti were out here, both physically impressive. George Wolko is like insanely impressive. There's actually a little bit of like Wolko in Fountain, but we're going to have, so like, you know, when you make contact, Kale Fountain's going to make like really, really loud contact. Ball's going to fly. But is it going to be like Wolko where he's going to get on top of a lot of stuff? And, you know, these taller, bigger guys, there's only so much pedigree with a lot of the young pitchers that are out here. And there's also just not great pitchers. The difference we'll see is like Luis Patino actually is rehabbing out here and pitched the other day. When you get those, you're going to have a little bit more advanced pitching, but you're probably going to have a lot of young guys that are going to challenge hitters, and then they're going to eat stuff in the dirt. So who is Kale Fountain going to be? Is he going to be a guy that is swinging through his shoes, kind of like Wolko is, and then he's going to miss a lot of stuff low? Those are things we're going to be looking out for him to see what the swing and miss actually looks like, but very talented guy.
There's another Padres draftee from 2024 who's been trending up that we'll get Welsh's thoughts on in a second. But finally, baseball is back this MLB season. Knock it out of the park with Vivid Seats and score great tickets to the biggest games of the year. Every fastball, every home run, and every eye-popping play of your favorite team live and in person. Plus, with Vivid Seats rewards, you can earn rewards with every single purchase. Just buy 10 tickets, then cash in your credit towards your free 11th ticket. Talk about an easy win. And here's a pro reward tip. When buying tickets for the whole group, split the bill and make progress towards your free 11th ticket even faster. From behind the dugout to the upper deck, Vivid Seats has great tickets for all the 25 games that matter to you. Just visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Vivid Seats, experience it live. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions. All right, back with Chris Welsh. We're previewing the 3 rookie leagues that are going to be getting underway here soon. We talked about Kale Fountain and how he will be making his pro debut, official pro debut in the ACL, returning from Tommy John surgery. You know, another Padres draftee from last year, Cobb Hightower. I think he got about half the bonus that Fountain got, but Hightower reportedly showed really well in the fall instructs. He's would be too old to be assigned to the ACL if he were healthy, but he's rehabbing a hamstring injury. I take it from what you were kind of hinting at that Cobb Hightower might be heading to single A and not playing in ACL games.
Yes. As I'm told, he's leaving today. He is out of here today. He was in the last 2 games, hit 3, a hit behind Jackson Merrill in both games. I got some singles videos, some hits. There's one out there I think I put around the Jackson Merrill you can check out. Some good contact. I love Cobb Hightower. And it's definitely a part of this. There's a little like, oh, it's kind of Jackson Merrill-y because Jackson Merrill is there. But, you know, when you're looking at some of these guys, Cooper Pratt is kind of become a new example in my brain of like, oh, this is a gamer who makes really good decisions at the plate, kind of owns the zone, makes a lot of contact, fast, athletic, a little bit smaller of a body. I don't want to get too ahead of myself with like Hightower having like a crazy upside. He's a tiny bit older, but I've seen a decent amount of him between the Bridge League and then into here over the last couple of days. And if he were here, I don't know if I would have put him as over Tyson Lewis just because of age, but he's really impressive. And he's somewhere between like he has the feel of a future major leaguer. I just don't know if it's going to be like full-time as a starter. We're gonna have to see where the power projection goes, but like Tyson, like I think Tyson Lewis is a little bit more athletic and might have more power projection for sure. Hightower is the type of guy that to me really can hit 300, even going to A ball. He's going to steal some bases, chip in a couple homers. And they put him in, like I said, they put him in aggressive part of the lineup, but also because he's kind of rehabbing and he was leaving, but he showed out when Merrill and Lockridge were there. But as I'm told, flying out today, and he should be at, I guess it's going to probably be low A. I didn't hear what it was, low A or high A, most likely low A, that he should be in his first pro games in the next couple days and will not be playing in the complex league. There was a thought that he was going to play here for a couple weeks, but like I said, as I'm told, that he's out today.
Yeah, that makes sense because he'd be by far the oldest hitter that's like a real prospect playing out there. So good to see that he's healthy. And just given AJ Preller's track record in the draft, the fact that we're getting good reports about him hitting in games and stuff, like Cobb Hightower, pretty good spec even before he plays at single A. especially in deeper leagues.
Yeah.
Okay, Welsh, before we head to the Florida Complex League, any thoughts on Johnny Levelle of the Giants? He obviously was a massive statistical performer in the Dominican Summer League last year. Seems like the body is probably maxed out, though, and it's tough to say exactly how much of that speed is going to be there when it's all said and done. But have you been able to see any of Johnny Levelle at all?
I have. I saw him twice against the Diamondbacks early on when Bryce Eldridge was actually rehabbing one game, and these were the Kale games. I'm not super impressed with the body. It's a little short, stout than I guess like statistically expectations you would have. He's hit a lot of ground ball. He's hitting it hard, but he's had a lot of stuff on the ground. I'm not sure that I'm going to build in like a whole lot of like athletic speed counting stats into his game when it's all said and done, because like I don't know. It's a weird thing you get when you're out here. Like there's the body types you look at and just the physical gameplay. And you're like, oh, this is what this guy can be. He doesn't have that feel, but I will say, I think he's been leading off like 1 or 2 for the team. I think he can steal bases out here. I think long-term that body's going to go. It's really interesting looking at the pipeline page. It lists him at 5'10", 154. This is definitely not where he's at. That is quite updated. He's a little bit like I said, stockier for his size. He might be 5'9", 5'10", and that's probably closer like 170 or something like that. But right now, to me, it's really raw. I think if you look at the DSL numbers and you want to just extrapolate that over to rookie ball, I think you'd be disappointed. I'm going to be really interested to see where like the power goes, but he was hitting a lot of ground balls early on when I saw him, but looks like there's probably some good EVs on him. I'm lukewarm on it. He's a name. We're going to watch him, but it's tiers below the guys that we've talked about. And honestly, since we're going to be moving on, like I think Paulino Santana is really interesting. If Braylon Morel is still out here, he's hitting the ball hard. Rainiel, I saw play, he's just perennially here. He just lives here, but like physically, he's super impressive. Levelle is a little bit further down that list.
Yeah, I was going to mention some of those guys just before we passed, it is interesting. Like Paulino Santana hits 0 homers in the DSL. But if you just remove the home run stat, he does have better numbers than Levelle. And it's, there's going to be a handful of guys who had some of the best statistical seasons in the DSL last year who come to the Florida or Arizona Complex League and completely fall on their face. And so I think Levelle's a candidate for that. But you could also see a guy like Santana, hit another gear in the power department. I mean, he did show pretty much everything else last year. That's the type of guy where, he's still age appropriate, right? Like it's not like Santana had to repeat the DSL or anything like that. So big time pedigree there. And if I'm sure he's available in some shallower leagues. So if Santana got off to a great start in the ACL, particularly hitting balls over the fence without compromising his hit tool, that'd be really exciting. And then
that'd be the thing that would get him back to being, just real quick on the that international class, everyone was torn and like all of a sudden Santana became like number 1 for some and here and there. If you saw the power come back, that's going to be probably the difference maker of like, oh, this is working. Like this, he actually might live up to some of that hype because he does make a lot of contact. He was hitting 3 last night, I think it was a opposite field, maybe it was double or maybe it was turned into a single. It was really windy last night, but very good athletic body, stole a bunch of bases, hitting for contact. OBP was over 400. So there's a lot working with him. If there's power and it builds this year, he is going to like rise up boards for sure.
Yeah. I mean, from a median type of output, like I kind of see some Paulino Santana with him, but like that's if he doesn't get any better. Or I see some Leody Taveras with him, but like
yeah.
But that's like if he just sort of stayed on this current trajectory. Whereas like I do think there's a chance there could be more there. And then I'll also just throw out Jose Anderson of the Brewers looked pretty good in the spring. He's hit for quite a bit of power. Obviously, the Brewers have a pretty good track record there, so keep an eye on Jose Anderson as well. And yeah, I guess we could. Well, Rainer Arias of the Giants, sort of post hype. Not expecting a ton from him, but he'll be out there. And Cheng Sane Ko, I think, of the Dodgers, another interesting guy that they gave, I think, 600,000 to, performed pretty well in the DSL. So he might be at ACL for a month or so and then head to single A, something like that. Okay, Florida Complex League, Welsh. Which player are you most excited to see how they perform in the Florida Complex League?
I think that one it's pretty easy for a lot of us. A top prospect, Yairo Padilla, shortstop with the Cardinals. Good build frame. Doesn't feel like he's maxed out yet. Still a bunch of bases last year. 287, almost 400 OBP. I think it was shout out to Tim Kanak, who got to see some of him, and I've had a couple other people that are in Florida just kind of popping out to me that the bat is really, really live. That we're gonna be looking for future power projection. But in 35 games last year, he did have 10 extra base hits, regardless of just the one homer. So we're gonna be looking for a big boost in the power department to kind of up his fantasy value. But I will say this: I did the P1 ADPs, which you always are taking apart with me. It's like a prospect ADP, bunch of drafts with listeners and industry people, and we take all the drafts and we make ADP out of it. And I do 2-3 times a year. Padilla was a top 100 guy when we did this about a month or so ago. He ended up being, and I believe Dylan White from Baseball America, he ended up taking him like around the 90s. So this was a really pre-hyped player. The valuation across multiple drafts ended up putting him around 100. So he's in line with, the Arizona Complex League is pretty stacked. I'm not sure that Florida is as stacked, but he would be like top 3 or 4 at worst if he were playing out here in Arizona. So Padilla is definitely the guy I'm most excited to watch.
Yeah, I think I've got him ranked highest of all these guys we're talking about.
Yeah, there you
go. For all the reasons you mentioned. I mean, you're looking for shortstops, you're looking for elite age to level, and great control of the zone, speed, projectable body, and Padilla checks all those boxes. So still need to perform stateside here in games to maintain that prospect stock, but if he kind of like with Santana, although Padilla is ranked quite a bit higher, but what kind of power is he going to get to in games? It's a nice environment to hit for power given the pitching and everything. So that'll be interesting to see. And the guy that I'm maybe just as excited about, just from a fantasy standpoint, is his teammate Rainiel Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Who I think is listed as a catcher on places like Fangraphs and stuff, but he's going to end up probably at first base / DH.
Pipeline, they moved him to third base, just to let you know. They have his positional at third base now, so that's on the MLB page. So that's new.
Okay. Well, all right.
Because he was a catcher. You're totally right about that, so that's interesting.
I'm still probably going to guess that he slides past third base, but they're at least letting him stop somewhere on the slide down the defensive spectrum before he gets all the way to the bottom. But as you would imagine, for us to be excited about him, given all that, the bat has a chance to be pretty special. I think his DSL statistical performance is right up there with every single guy we're talking about. I mean, the guys that did better got assigned to single A, Jesus Mate. But like Emil Morales versus Rainiel Rodriguez, I feel like their performances last year were pretty similar, and Rodriguez doesn't have that same level of hype. So if he's available in your kind of mid-sized dynasty leagues, I would scoop him up before Florida Complex League play gets underway. But if you have Rodriguez already, I think it's possible that sometimes we just see a guy with just put up real special performance in that first month at the complex level and then get that quick bump to single A. I could see that happening with Rodriguez. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all if he just from a offensive statistical output standpoint performs better than Padilla in the Florida Complex League.
Yeah, I agree. That would have been, if we were doing our 1B to it, it's Rainiel, just huge power output, stolen bases. I mean, all of it in the DSL is like just overinflated, and like the conversion rate of trying to figure out what, carries over. Yasser Mercedes is a prime example of like what carries over. Speed tends to be way overinflated over there, but there's something about like massive power numbers that really get you going. Plus 25 extra base hits in 41 games. So I mean that isn't quite as fluky, but we're gonna have to see where the contact goes. But there's a lot of power projection. Interesting how you phrased it. Like him and Emil Morales had like similar trajectories, but Rainiel doesn't get as much of the love. But top of the list, top 8 of all the prospects in both of the rookie balls for sure. And there's I like the idea too of like getting him in those deeper prospect leagues, picking him up right now before that first week comes up, because I think he's also got a chance to put up some really good EV numbers. And for some of the rankers or analysts that have availability for some of that data that some of us don't, you're going to start seeing like, models that are going to shoot out a guy like Rainiel as like, this is a guy that you need to be paying attention to. So astute one to talk about.
Yeah. And for anyone that's got a RotoWire subscription or wants one, Roto 15 for 15% off. I will be putting up that Breakout rookie level hitters article on Thursday if you want to track down these names and see if they're available in your league and learn more about them. Anyone else in the Florida Complex League stand out? Like Eduardo Beltre with the Twins obviously has the power and the speed, and I think a lot of evaluators are kind of taking a wait and see approach with the hit tool with Beltre to see how he does in the Florida Complex League. Justin Gonzalez, I think, is a guy that I'm pretty high on with the Red Sox, who's a fantasy over reality first base, maybe right field prospect who had ridiculous hit tool data in the DSL and has some interesting power. I don't know if there's anyone else you want to talk about in the FCL.
Luke Dickerson. I'm really, really interested in to get looks. I mean, I think there was a big bonus on him and big speed. We'll see where the power ends up going and like how all of it's going to connect. There's some like bat speed questions, I think, of like what the contactability is going to be. But Luke Dickerson, I'm very, very excited to see. That would be one of those guys that I'm preemptively picking up because I think there could be some quick moves off of him. Tyson Lewis, like, JD Dixs, guys that I think that can move out pretty quick.
Yeah. And Dickerson, I would almost, kind of what I said about like Tyson Lewis, but maybe even more so. Like I'm a little concerned that he was held back for the FCL. Just, I can't imagine they couldn't find room for him at single A, and he was pretty new to baseball. Like I think he was a hockey player, right, in high school too. So I
think that's part of the reason right there. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
But like, I mean, wouldn't be surprising if he fell flat in the FCL, just because of how new he is to baseball, how raw he is. But like if he hits, like that's why he was held back. But if he'd been more advanced than expected, he wouldn't have been held back, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Exciting crop of FCL guys, even if the list of guys isn't quite as deep. And then now we move to the Dominican Summer League, Welsh. I had to go in and edit the note I did for Josuar De Jesus on the site, because when I did the original note, his name was Josuar De Jesus Alexander, and I had his last name as Alexander. Now we're going with De Jesus.
Changing it up.
But he is the top guy, I think, on most lists in the DSL. Yorger Bautista, I think, with the Mariners is kind of an interesting name to kind of rival De Jesus. But who are you most excited for in the Dominican Summer League?
De Jesus is definitely number one. Selfish. I want him to dominate, and I want him to come out and maybe play like a tiny bit of rookie ball. I would absolutely love to see that. Elian Pena is another one of those kind of top. The bat was seen as one of them. It might have shades of Jose Perdomo though, where, remember, was it like last year and people were like, well, Perdomo's got advanced bat. Like Elian Pena definitely has like an advanced bat that I'm very excited to see. Kevin Alvarez jumps on the list, and Chris Rodriguez with the Tigers. Chris Rodriguez, I think, has got a lot of potential juice. Fantasy relevant wise, Rodriguez, Pena, De Jesus, and Batista. Those are probably like the big four. And really De Jesus and Batista for me, because they could come out here on this side. But, even with Seattle, remember like Doel Joseph, like how much like hype there was when he internationally got drafted, and then it just fell flat and he was kind of bad in his debut. And I still don't know any signs of if he's going to be out here or what he's doing. So be interested to see how Batista like really dominates in the DSL and if they decide to go quick at all. But those are the names that I'm kind of hyped for DSL.
Yeah. And, the DSL is, it's just such a dangerous place to draw firm conclusions. And also, these guys we're talking about now, we're mostly talking about them because they got huge bonuses.
Yeah.
But like assuming that the bonus, it just doesn't match the prospect that they turn into a lot of the time. And it can sometimes be misleading. And, like Jesus Mate, we didn't talk about Jesus Mate on this episode last year because he didn't get a big enough bonus, but he was the best guy in the league. And that could happen again, where someone we're not talking about ends up being the best guy in the league. But, the bonus is one of the bigger data points we have to look at right now. I do think with like Elian Pena, I'm getting I don't know if he's going to be as bad as Perdomo, just because like Perdomo is almost kind of a non-prospect now, but
yeah,
it is scary to me that, if you look at Elian Pena's scouting report compared to De Jesus or Bautista or Kevin Alvarez or even Chris Rodriguez, you're just not hearing anyone gush about the power and definitely not the speed with Pena. It's really kind of about that hit tool. And so I worry, like he basically has to be a plus hitter or better, or the scouting reports now have to be wrong about the power and or speed for it to really kind of pop in fantasy. But then at the same time, like the guys like Yorger Bautista, Chris Rodriguez, I think especially just given his height, given the fact that he's not going to run, like we've seen guys like that where they just in the DSL they just don't really hit, and the power or the speed kind of becomes irrelevant. So it's just very challenging, but I thought those were good names. Juan Tomas was kind of a late name. And I think it was Jim Callis that was really kind of pumping up Juan Tomas, who the Cubs cobbled together, I think 1.1 million to sign him late in the process. Has a really projectable, I think like 6'3", 175 or something like that frame at shortstop, plus speed. But sometimes these late pop-up guys, like there's guys like this every year. Sometimes they don't amount to anything. But Juan Tomas with the Cubs is another name to throw out there. Alvarez with the Astros, you mentioned. I'm intrigued by him. I'm probably more intrigued by him than Rodriguez, just because I think the body has a chance to be a little bit better. And Dorian Soto is a guy with the Red Sox who's getting a decent amount of hype for the hit tool and the power. And then I'm gonna like rank the two Brewers guys, Braylon Antonez and Kenny Fenelon, in my top 10 for the DSL, just as kind of a nod to what the Brewers have done recently. Like,
great point.
There isn't necessarily anything special about these guys compared to, whoever else is ranked in like the 10 to 30 range on these J15 lists, but just the fact that the Brewers have had so much success, and it's not even like it's more about the players they're trying to sign. I think like they just have a good taste for a young 15, 16-year-old international prospect. Obviously they're doing good stuff developmentally too, but it's just too many hits to kind of not take these Brewers signings seriously. I don't know if you had anything to add on any of that.
Yeah, there's only so many times that like a team like the Brewers can go Churio to Mate to Pena that you can't you can't not pay attention to like, anybody that they're going aggressively after or that is being touted out there. So the Antunez one is he's really interesting to me to lock in, and also to see how, much they push these guys up. The thing I was thinking about was something you and I had talked about a couple years ago, how like the international classes were always overinflated. There's definitely a period of time. We've come a long way from the Kevin Maitons of the world, where it was like, he's touted, he has absolutely zero experience. Here's the valuation, go with it. And that, like, you and I have kind of gone through this, more and more these international guys are kind of being ranked lower and lower because it's more Wild West. But I also think nowadays it is just more Wild West. COVID kind of changed some of the international, it kind of took everybody a step back with, how much teams and even other, analysts and personnel weren't able to get out there. And that kind of set the market back just a tiny bit. Because remember, these guys are getting signed to like 14. So 3 years back, we're just starting to, kind of get back into where things have been regular for enough period of time. But the scouting feels weird. And back to what you were saying at the top of the show, maybe your worries with a guy like Tyson Lewis, is that like levels are a little bit more telling nowadays. So paying attention to how aggressive players get moved around. Sebastian Walcott was in the DSL, and halfway through they were like, we're done. They sent him to rookie ball and fast trajectory. So the trajectory of how teams, regardless if the team is hyper aggressive like the Padres or not, it is interesting to pay attention to how teams move these guys, because the Brewers don't screw around. And there's a lot of teams that are doing the same, that I think that more than it's ever been in the past, we actually do need to pay attention to the assignments and the movement that goes on. I think it tells us more than it ever told us before. So be careful about the international guys, because, guys like Made just boom, they just go flying and they're out. Not to say these guys are brand new, they just signed internationally, but like, how long do they stay? How do they perform there? And how do teams move him might be more telling. We're just no longer spending the capital like we used to of top 150-ish pick of a overall prospect. We're not valuing that standpoint. That like, it's a lot more speculation than it's ever been before. And baseball is just giving us a lot more cues to figure that out than it was. So it's really interesting conversation around the DSL guys. The as much as rookie ball is kind of the Wild West, it is the wild West in the Dominican Summer League.
Yes. It absolutely is. That's Chris Welsh. Welsh, what do you got going on? You want to plug anything before I let you go?
You can check out my Twitter. It get you everywhere. I've just released like 2 days ago my updated top 500 prospect ranks and my top 400 dynasty. It also has that P1 ADP, top 200 prospect ADP on it, and some other stuff on my Patreon at inthisleague.com. You can sign up there. Just check it out. If you want to check out my list, I do them at least 1 month. That's a really good thing. Otherwise, all my other shows, Prospect One, In This League, on Fantasy Pros, Monday through Friday live. I'm kind of everywhere. But if you check out the Twitter, it'll kind of get you to all the places you need to be if you want to check out what I got going down.
Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Welsh. Couldn't have done it with anyone else. And I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Appreciate you having me, dude.
Of course. This has been the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by Vivid Seats.